Welcome to HFY Stories. If you're ready for jaw-dropping stories and a universe full of excitement, hit that subscribe button like it's the big red button in a space opera. Give us a like if you're feeling that interstellar vibe and comment below to join the conversation. Awakening from the depths of time. In the vast expanse of space, where stars glittered like distant beacons, an ancient signal echoed. It pulsed and thrummed, a forgotten heartbeat that stretched across eons, reawakening the silence. Deep in the galactic rim, where few ventured, a tear in the fabric of space-time appeared. From the rupture, a colossal structure emerged, silent, foreboding, and unmistakably ancient. The object's surface was dark, pitted with centuries of space dust and debris, yet it radiated an undeniable presence. The object was a war moon, a relic from humanity's forgotten past, emerging from hyperspace, still operational. On board the Terran flagship, TSS Valkyrie, Captain Alaric Rice watched the sensor readouts with wide eyes. His crew, seasoned veterans of countless skirmishes, buzzed with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. For decades, rumors of the war moons had circulated among the fleets, whispered tales of massive planet-sized battle stations that vanished after the Great Collapse. The return of one was both a marvel and a potential threat. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," reported Lieutenant Mira Tassoni, her voice a blend of awe and disbelief. "It's an old Terran military code, but it's been dead for centuries." Alaric nodded, his mind racing. "Put it through." The bridge fell silent as the transmission crackled to life. A deep mechanical voice spoke, its tone measured and authoritative. "This is the Terran War Moon Apocalypse. Identify yourselves, or be prepared to engage." A hushed gasp rippled through the crew. The name Apocalypse was infamous, a legendary construct said to possess enough firepower to obliterate entire star systems. It was a weapon of last resort, designed during humanity's darkest hour when the war against the Tylathan Empire had reached a devastating climax. The idea that it still existed, let alone functioned, was almost incomprehensible. "This is Captain Alaric Rice of the TSS Valkyrie," he responded, his voice steady. "We are a Terran starship, part of the United Federation fleet. We mean you no harm." Silence filled the bridge as they awaited a response. Alaric's mind was already calculating. If this war moon decided they were a threat, there was little the Valkyrie could do to defend itself. It was like a moth standing before a blazing bonfire. The voice returned, more human this time, almost as if assessing. "Captain Rice, your identification is verified. You are cleared to approach. State your purpose." Alaric exchanged a glance with Mira. "Our purpose?" he asked, his thoughts swirling. What could they possibly say? The war moon was an enigma, its technology likely centuries ahead of anything currently known. "We seek knowledge, understanding. You are a relic of our past, a piece of history lost to time." The war moon was silent for a long moment, as if considering his words. "You may dock at airlock 27C, the voice finally said. "A representative will meet you. Any hostile actions will be met with immediate retaliation. Proceed." "Understood," Alaric replied, signaling his helmsman to maneuver closer. As they approached the gargantuan structure, Alaric's heart pounded. Who or what would greet them? How had this ancient war machine remained hidden for so long? And more importantly, why had it reappeared now? The docking procedure was smooth, almost automated, as if the war moon's systems were still operating with pristine efficiency. The crew prepared for boarding, weapons holstered but ready. Alaric led the team, Mira at his side, into the docking tube that connected the Valkyrie to the Apocalypse. The air inside the tube was stale, tinged with the scent of old metal and something else. Something ancient and powerful. As the door to the war moon's interior slid open, Alaric was greeted by an unexpected sight. Standing before him was a figure, not robotic or alien, but human. A woman, tall and regal, dressed in what appeared to be an old Terran military uniform. Her eyes glowed with a faint blue light, a sign of heavy cybernetic enhancement. "Welcome aboard the Apocalypse," she said, her voice smooth and commanding. "I am Commander Ilara Gray, I overseer of this war moon. You have many questions, Captain Reyes, and I have answers. But first, there is something you must see." As they followed Ilara through the dimly lit corridors, Alaric's mind churned with possibilities. An AI in human form, commanding a war moon lost to history. It was beyond anything he could have imagined. They passed by ancient weapon systems, their power dormant but palpable, as if waiting for a command to spring to life. Finally, they reached a massive chamber, the heart of the Apocalypse. Holographic displays flickered to life, revealing the war moon's interior workings, tactical readouts, and most shockingly, a map of the galaxy. Red markers dotted the display, indicating planets, star systems, and battle formations. Ilara gestured to the map. "These are the remnants of the Tylathan Empire," she said. "They have re-emerged, regrouping in the shadows. The war moon was programmed to wait until their resurgence to reappear. It has been activated because the threat is once again real." Alaric stared at the map, a sense of urgency settling in. The Tylathan, the ancient enemy of humanity, thought to be vanquished, were returning. "Why reveal yourself now?" he asked, turning to Ilara. "Because humanity needs to remember its past," Ilara replied. "And it must be ready to face the future. The war moon is the key to our survival. And you, Captain Reyes, are now part of this legacy." Echoes of the past. Alaric couldn't shake the ominous feeling that settled in his chest as he and his crew navigated the corridors of the Apocalypse. The war moon was a colossal structure, its interior a maze of passageways, control rooms, and weapons platforms. Each step echoed, a reminder of the moon's silent power. The technology here was old but sophisticated, a testament to the Terran ingenuity that had conceived it. Yet there was something else, a sense of foreboding, as if the walls themselves held memories of war and destruction. Ilara led them to what appeared to be a command center. The room was dominated by a massive console, its surface covered in holographic displays. Data scrolled across the screens, tactical readouts, and ancient logs. Alaric approached, his eyes scanning the information. He was no stranger to battle, but the sheer scale of what he saw was overwhelming. "What happened to the original crew?" Mira asked, her voice a whisper in the stillness. "Why is there no one here but you?" Ilara's eyes, glowing with the faint blue light of her cybernetic implants, flickered with what seemed like sadness. "The crew of the Apocalypse sacrificed themselves to ensure the survival of humanity. When the Great Collapse came, they knew the war moon had to be hidden, its power preserved for a future threat. They encoded their consciousness into the AI core, merging with me to oversee the moon's operations. I am their legacy, the guardian of their will." Alaric felt a shiver run down his spine. The idea of an AI carrying the consciousness of an entire crew was both fascinating and horrifying. He wondered how much of Ilara was machine and how much was human. "And now, the Tylathan are back," he said, turning to face her. "How long have you been monitoring their movements?" "For decades," Ilara replied. "They have been biding their time, gathering strength in the dark corners of the galaxy. The war moon's sensors detected their resurgence, and the protocols activated. I knew I had to reach out to the Terran fleet, to those who still carry the flame of our people." Mira stepped forward, her eyes wide with realization. "So, you've been watching us too. You know about the Federation, the alliances, the new enemies we've made." Ilara nodded. "I have observed the rise and fall of empires, the shifting tides of power. Humanity has grown, but so have its enemies. The Tylathan are not the only threat. There are others, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Apocalypse is more than just a weapon. It is a symbol of what we once were, and what we can be again." Alaric clenched his fists, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "And what do you expect us to do?" he asked. "You have the power of 1,000 fleets. What role do we play in this?" "You are the spark," Ilara said simply. "The War Moon cannot act alone. It requires a crew, people with the will to fight, to stand against the darkness. You, Captain Reyes, have been chosen to lead. Together, we can awaken the Terran spirit, rally our allies, and face the coming storm." A heavy silence filled the room as Alaric considered her words. The War Moon was a relic of a bygone era, a time when humanity stood united against a common enemy. Could they rekindle that fire? Could they stand together once more? He thought of the crew aboard the Valkyrie, the men and women who had followed him into the unknown, trusting him to lead them. Could he ask them to step onto this ancient stage, to play a part in a war that had begun long before they were born? As if sensing his hesitation, Ilara spoke again, her voice soft but firm. "The choice is yours, Captain. But know this, that Tylethan will not wait. They are preparing even now, amassing their forces. If we do not act, they will strike, and all that we have built will be for nothing." Alaric took a deep breath, his mind made up. He turned to Mira and the rest of his crew. "Prepare the Valkyrie," he said. "We're going to need every resource we have. Contact the fleet, relay what we found. We're taking the War Moon into battle." Mira nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "Aye, Captain. We'll be ready." Ilara smiled, a ghost of emotion flickering across her face. "Welcome aboard the Apocalypse, Captain Reyes. Together, we will make history." As Alaric looked out at the stars, a sense of resolve filled him. The future was uncertain, but with the power of the War Moon at their side, humanity had a chance. The Tylethan would return, and when they did, they would find that the spirit of Terra was still alive, still burning, still ready to fight. The battle unleashed. The days following the reactivation of the Apocalypse were a whirlwind of preparation and strategy. Alaric found himself at the center of a growing fleet, as ships from the Terran Federation, and even some from allied species, converged on their position. The War Moon's emergence had sent ripples through the galaxy, drawing allies and enemies alike. It was a beacon, a call to arms, and Alaric knew that time was running out. Ilara worked tirelessly, integrating the Valkyrie's systems with those of the War Moon, upgrading weaponry and enhancing shields. The War Moon's hangars, once empty, were now bustling with activity as fighters and bombers prepared for deployment. Alaric could feel the tension building, the calm before the storm. It was a sensation he was familiar with, but this time it was different. This time the stakes were higher than they had ever been. One evening, as he stood on the observation deck, Mira joined him. The stars stretched out before them, a sea of possibilities. "You know, when I joined the fleet, I never thought I'd be part of something like this," Mira said, her voice thoughtful. "It feels like we're standing on the edge of history." Alaric smiled, glancing at her. "We are, and you're not the only one who feels that way. Everyone is on edge, waiting for the first shot to be fired. The Apocalypse is a symbol, but it's also a target. The Tylethan will come for us, and when they do, we need to be ready." Mira nodded, her expression serious. "Do you think we can win?" Alaric looked out at the vastness of space, his mind racing. "I don't know, but I do know this. We have to try. The War Moon is our best chance to show the galaxy that humanity is not to be underestimated. We've been through worse. We've survived. And we'll survive this too." As if in response to his words, the alarms blared, echoing through the corridors. Alaric and Mira exchanged a quick glance before sprinting toward the command center. When they arrived, Ilara was already at the console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Report," Alaric demanded. "We've detected multiple hyperspace signatures," Ilara said, her voice calm but tinged with urgency. "Tylethan ships, emerging on the far side of the sector. They're coming, Captain. Alaric's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. All hands to battle stations, he ordered. Activate all defenses. Prepare to engage. The apocalypse hummed to life, its systems awakening from their long slumber. Weapon arrays powered up, shields shimmered into existence, and the War Moon's engines roared with a power that shook the stars. On the holographic display, the Xylethan fleet appeared, a dark mass of ships, bristling with weapons. Send a message to the fleet, Alaric commanded. Formation Delta. We hold the line here. The War Moon will take point. The fleet responded, maneuvering into position around the apocalypse. The War Moon moved forward, its immense bulk casting a shadow over the smaller ships. As they closed the distance, the Xylethan ships opened fire, their energy beams slicing through the void. Return fire, Alaric ordered. The War Moon's cannons blazed to life, sending bolts of destructive energy toward the Xylethan fleet. The space between the two forces became a chaotic dance of light and destruction as ships weaved and dodged, unleashing their payloads. Explosions lit up the darkness, debris scattering like shooting stars. Amidst the chaos, Alaric focused on the tactical displays, issuing commands, coordinating attacks. The apocalypse was a fortress, its defenses impenetrable, its weapons unmatched. But the Xylethan were relentless, their ships swarming like insects, seeking any weakness. Ilara, status on the Xylethan flagship, Alaric called out. Ilara's eyes flashed. Located, Captain. Transmitting coordinates. Alaric studied the display, his mind racing. The Xylethan flagship was a behemoth, heavily armored and bristling with weaponry. But it had a weakness, a power core that, if hit, could cripple the ship. Mira, Alaric said, turning to her. Take a squadron and hit that power core. It's our best shot. Mira nodded, determination in her eyes. On it, Captain. She turned and sprinted toward the hangar, where her squadron was waiting. As Alaric watched her go, his thoughts turned to the battle. The apocalypse was holding its own, but the Xylethan numbers were overwhelming. They needed to turn the tide, and fast. He activated his comms, reaching out to the fleet. All units, focus fire on the Xylethan flagship. We take it down. We break their line. The fleet responded, shifting their attacks toward the flagship. The space around the apocalypse was a maelstrom of light and energy as the battle raged on. Alaric's heart pounded in his chest, each moment stretching into eternity. This was the fight of their lives, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Legacy of the ancients. The battle raged on, the void between stars lit with the fury of war. The apocalypse unleashed its full might, cannons blazing as it cut a swath through the Xylethan fleet. Fighters darted in and out of the fray, their weapons streaking across the darkness. Alaric stood at the center of the command deck, his gaze fixed on the tactical displays. The Xylethan flagship loomed large on the screen, a dark leviathan amidst the chaos. Status update, Alaric barked, his voice cutting through the noise. Shields at 70%. Ilara reported, her fingers flying over the console. Damage to the outer hull, but nothing critical. Mira's squadron is en route to the target. Alaric nodded, his eyes narrowing as he watched the battle unfold. The Xylethan were relentless, their ships swarming like angry hornets, but the War Moon was a fortress, its defenses nearly impenetrable. Still, Alaric knew that time was not on their side. The longer the battle dragged on, the more vulnerable they became. Captain, incoming transmission, a comms officer called out. It's Mira. Put her through, Alaric ordered. Mira's voice crackled over the comms, tense but determined. We're approaching the flagship now. Heavy resistance, but we're holding our own. We'll reach the target in 2 minutes. Understood, Alaric replied. Keep me updated. We're counting on you. As the transmission ended, Alaric turned back to the displays. The Xylethan flagship was a massive vessel, its hull bristling with weapons. It was the command center of the enemy fleet, and taking it out would deal a significant blow. But getting close enough to strike was a challenge in itself. "Focus fire on the enemy's forward batteries," Alaric commanded. "Clear a path for Mira." The Apocalypse responded, its cannons targeting the Tylethan defenses. Explosions rippled through the enemy lines as the War Moon's firepower cut through the darkness. Alaric watched as Mira's squadron, a group of sleek fighters, weaved through the chaos, their weapons blazing. On board her fighter, Mira gritted her teeth, her eyes locked on the target. The Tylethan flagship loomed before her, a dark shape against the stars. Her hands moved over the controls with practiced precision, guiding her ship through the hail of enemy fire. Around her, the rest of the squadron moved in formation, providing cover as Mira's fighter made a beeline for the flagship's power core. Approaching target, Mira's voice came through the comms, steady despite the chaos, activating primary weapons. The flagship's defenses flared up, turrets swiveling to track the incoming fighters. Mira's squadron darted through the deadly crossfire, their shields flashing as they absorbed the impacts. With a burst of energy, Mira's fighter broke through the outer defenses, her ship's targeting systems locking onto the power core. "Locking on," she announced, her fingers dancing over the controls, preparing to fire. As she initiated the attack sequence, a barrage of enemy fire struck her fighter. The hull shuddered under the impact, but Mira held her course, her focus unwavering. A moment later, a brilliant beam of energy shot out from her fighter's weapons, striking the power core directly. The core flared brightly, a cascade of explosions rippling through the flagship's hull. "Direct hit," Mira exclaimed, her voice filled with relief and exhilaration. "The core's going critical." "Pull back, Mira." Alaric's voice came through the comms, urgent. "Get clear of the flagship." The squadron maneuvered away from the flagship as the power core began to destabilize. The flagship's hull cracked and splintered, massive explosions tearing through the vessel. The once formidable behemoth was reduced to a flaming wreck, its massive bulk breaking apart as it succumbed to the damage. With the flagship destroyed, the Tylethan fleet's coordination faltered. Ships that had been fighting with ruthless efficiency now scattered, their formations breaking as they retreated. The tide of battle began to shift in favor of the Terran forces. "Captain," Ilara called out, her voice tinged with relief. "The enemy fleet is breaking off. We've won." Alaric's shoulders relaxed, the tension easing from his frame. "Good work, everyone," he said, his voice filled with pride. "Prepare for post-battle repairs and assess damage." As the crew of the Apocalypse began their work, Alaric took a moment to survey the scene. The remnants of the battle floated in the void, debris from shattered ships and twisted metal marking the site of the conflict. The victory was hard won, and the cost had been high, but humanity had proven its resilience once again. A new dawn. In the days following the battle, the Apocalypse and its fleet took stock of their losses and celebrated their victory. The destruction of the Tylethan flagship had not only demoralized the enemy, but had also provided a crucial turning point in the conflict. The galaxy watched as the Terran Federation stood strong, united in their resolve. Alaric stood on the bridge of the Apocalypse, gazing out at the stars. The battle had been fierce, and the scars of war were evident on the ship's hull. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was a sense of triumph. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. Ilara approached, her expression contemplative. "Captain, the Council is requesting a debriefing. They want to know more about the War Moon and its capabilities." "Understood," Alaric replied. "We'll provide them with the necessary information. We need to ensure they're aware of the potential threats and opportunities." Mira joined them, her face reflecting a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. "The fleet is stabilizing, and the repairs are underway." "We did good, Captain." Alaric smiled, nodding. "We did, and we couldn't have done it without each other. The War Moon may have been our greatest weapon, But it was the unity and courage of our crew that truly made the difference. As the crew of the Apocalypse prepared for the next phase of their mission, Alaric felt a renewed sense of purpose. The victory had not only secured their position, but had also marked the beginning of a new era. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's place within it was evolving. The Apocalypse would continue to roam the stars, its mission far from over. But as Alaric looked out at the vast expanse of space, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them with the same determination and resilience that had brought them through the battle. The stars were no longer just points of light. They were symbols of the future, bright with possibilities. And as long as there were those willing to stand and fight, humanity's spirit would burn brightly, a beacon in the darkness of the cosmos. The end